Hi class, welcome to the Practice 3 Photoshop practice video walkthrough. I'm going to go ahead and take you through this assignment, explain how the different tools are working, and just continue to get you acquainted with Photoshop. You can see that I have the instructions open on the right and Photoshop on the left, and I'm doing this so that I can obviously maximize the amount of space I have for the video so that you can see the instructions. When you're working at home, it's probably best, or it is best, to maximize Photoshop to the full window, full size of your monitor, just so that you have the most space available. All right, so for this assignment, this practice assignment is still part of Module 1. So everything that you're going to do in this assignment, once we hit Module 2 and the rest of the course, everything you do in this assignment and the previous assignments, we're going to break down much further, and you're going to practice things over and over again. So in this assignment, I'm introducing a lot more new things, layers and using some of the restoration tools and things like that, but we are going to hit these again and again in the course. All right, so I have already downloaded the start file for this assignment, and obviously I have Photoshop open. So step 3 talks about finding the file using Adobe Bridge. As a reminder, Adobe Bridge is the file management tool that comes with Photoshop, and it's a very robust tool. It actually comes with all of the Adobe programs. There are so many Adobe programs. At Scottsdale Community College, we teach Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop, and Photoshop Level 2. There are other Adobe programs, Adobe Animate, Adobe Premiere, so many others, I can't even think of all of them. But this Adobe Bridge program allows you to view files from other Adobe programs and see a lot more information about those files, more than you would get through Windows Explorer or Finder on the Mac. So to open Bridge, you can go File, Browse in Bridge. I already have it open on another window, so I'm just going to pull it here into the center of my screen and maximize it. And you can see what we're looking at is what Bridge looks like on my computer. It's going to look a little bit different on yours because, one, you're going to have different folders and drives, different files and things like that. I am working out of my downloads folder, so you're going to find all of the folders and drives over here on the left. You can bookmark some of your favorite places that you go to if you want. For purposes of this class, or when I teach lessons or make recordings, I always like to work in my downloads. So you can see I have several files in this folder in the downloads. And so one of the things I want to point out before we actually get started is you can change how this environment looks. Just down here at the bottom, you can see that I can actually show you one giant file, or I can show you many, many, many files, right? You can change how many you're looking at any one time. You could change, look at them as thumbnails. You can look at them with a detailed view where you can see how big they are, what resolution, what color profiles, all this kind of information that we actually explore more in the advanced class. There's another view that just lets you do it as a list. I like this view. It's totally up to you. So you can see there's all kinds of files in here. And actually, if I click on a file, you can see you can even rate them or score them, so you can categorize them. And then also when you click on a picture, there's all this metadata that you can review, and you can even associate keywords with pictures. So we're just going to work with this one picture. I'm going to go ahead and double click it. And because it's a Photoshop file, a PSD, it's going to go ahead and open in Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and close Bridge because we don't need it. And so the next step, we went ahead and double clicked it, we opened it. So now we're going to go ahead and save it. So I'm going to go ahead and go File, Save As. And as a reminder, always append your name to the end of your file. It can be first name, last name, or last name, first name. I don't care the order. Do not type the file extension. You don't have to do that. Photoshop will actually add it for you because I'm choosing it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and you'll see that it changed the name of the file. All right, so step 5, right-click the background layer and choose Duplicate Layer. Rename this layer as Working Layer. Do not add the double quotes. And then I'm giving you a bit of information about layers. We are going to explore layers a lot more in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to kind of reserve all of my awesome lecture notes and tips and tricks for that. What you want to learn about layers right now is every Photoshop file is built with layers. A Photoshop file can have many layers, and layers hold pixels or pieces of your image. All right, so right over here, you can see I have my layers panel open. If you don't, you can go to Window, Layers, or you can press the function 7 key, and that will go ahead and open up the layers panel, and I have it open down here. And you can see with your panels, you can actually change, you know, the width, you can move your environment around, you can do all kinds of things to really customize it so that all the tools that you like to use all the time are quick, easily at your fingertips. So you can see there's one layer right here. It's called background. Background, the word is actually italicized and it's locked. So the background layer is a special layer. Every Photoshop file will have a background layer, and you can't do anything to that layer unless you change its name or make a copy of it. We'll talk more about those steps later on down the road. In this assignment, I just want you to make a copy of it. So my layer is selected. I know it's selected because it's in gray. In fact, if I click in this gray area down here, you'll see, oh, it didn't deselect it. I can actually, oh, won't do that either. So ignore that. You can see that is selected and it is my only layer. I'm going to make a copy of it, so I can right click on it and choose duplicate layer. And then I want you to change its name to working layer, so I can just type right over that. One of the things I'm going to emphasize in this class over and over again is renaming layers with descriptive names. So I'm going to click OK and watch what happens right here. You'll see that I got a second copy of that same exact image. So best practice in working in Photoshop, when you have a layer with an image on it and you're about ready to make changes to it, it's common practice to make a copy of the original and keep the original in your file, so that if you mess up what you're doing, you can always go back and make another copy of the original and continue to work. Which I guess I said right here in step B, excuse me. Okay, so ultimately what we're going to do with this picture is, you can tell that this picture, obviously it's not completely horizontal, it's kind of rotated, and has this horrible color cast. It's a very orange, very red looking. So we are going to rotate the picture and make it level, make it horizontal and vertical, up and down, and then we're also going to do a little color correcting, and we're going to repair this wall. We're going to get rid of all of this weird graffiti up here and just leave the graffiti at the bottom. So we're going to practice with a bunch of different tools. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to choose the crop tool. So over here on the tools panel, here's my crop tool. If you don't see it, you can always click and hold on this tool, because if it shows a different tool, perhaps the slice tool, you would have to find it. So if you click and hold on the tool, you'll be able to find the crop tool. Okay. Ensure the options bar is set to original ratio. So I'm going to come up here and choose original ratio. That makes sure that it fits the entire image that I'm looking at. With no values, that means nothing in these two boxes. That's what I mean by no values. And then the first thing we want to do is straighten the image. So we can turn on the straighten option. This is super nifty. So right up here on the options bar where it says straighten, I'm going to go ahead and click it one time. That turns it on. You can see how it's kind of pressed in. And then all you're going to do is you're going to place your cursor, you're going to eyeball it, and then I'm going to click, hold, and drag my mouse following that top edge, and I'm going to let go of my mouse when I'm at that crosshair. As I let go, boom, do you see how it made it perfectly vertical? Now if I wanted to do that again, I can go edit, undo, or Control Z, edit, Control Z is the last step. To undo a step, you can always go backwards in time. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to click on the straighten tool, click, hold, and drag, and just follow that top edge, and then Photoshop automatically aligns it for you. All right. So now we've rotated it. At the same time, we can also crop it. So remember, cropping from our very first assignment is cutting away pieces. I want to get rid of this white edge. So I'm just going to place my cursor on any one of these edges, and I'm just going to start dragging in. I'm just going to eyeball. It doesn't have to be exact. And yes, I'm going a little bit inside the picture to make sure that I'm getting rid of the white. Just kind of pulling that up. And that looks pretty good to me. It's totally okay if you cut off some of the edge. Once you're happy with it, when you click, you can click the check mark on the options bar, or you can press the enter key. I'm going to check commit. Boom, and there you go. Now what you should notice, and some students forget this, which it makes sense later on down the road, is when I cropped the working layer, actually everything in my Photoshop file gets cropped to that same size. Okay. A best practice also is to save your file often. Whenever you see the little asterisk next to the file name, that means some type of change has occurred in your file. And so to update it, just File, Save, or Control S. Now, this maximize compatibility may or may not show up. You may have already turned it off from a previous assignment, but if you haven't, what this is telling me is saying, hey, make sure you don't turn this off. It's gonna make sure that when I take this Photoshop file, if I want to open it in an older version, I can. You guys can check don't show again. I don't, because I teach this class over and over again, so I always like to point this out. But you want to make sure that maximize compatibility does have a check. Click OK. All right. Let's see. Step 11. Now let's adjust the color of the image. There's a yellow cast on the image, so we're going to add a levels adjustment layer to modify the darks and lights in the adjustment panel on the levels. All right, so you're like, what? Okay. What's going to happen is we're going to adjust the colors in this layer, this working layer, but nothing is going to change the background layer. I'm going to preserve. Only thing we changed was we straightened it and cropped it. That did change it. Those are permanent changes. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a special effect. We can add something special to this layer. It's called an adjustment layer, where I can change how the image looks. So to do this, you're going to go to the adjustment panel, which is above the layers panel right here, adjustments. If you don't have it, all the panels that always appear on the right can be found under the window pull down menu. So if you don't see adjustments, you can just go to window adjustments and make sure it's turned on. And then in this panel, what you're going to do is you want to find the levels adjustment layer, which is this one. And every single thing in Photoshop has a tooltip. So whatever you float your cursor over, it's going to give you a little note telling you exactly what it is. Here's the adjustment layer. When I click this, watch what happens in my layers panel. I'm going to click this, and what it did was it added another layer, which is called a levels layer. And my properties window now is looking a bit different. I'm going to change things about the levels. And levels allow us to change the darks and the lights in an overall image. And so what I want to do is I want to balance this. I want to tell the picture, hey, I want to tell you, picture, what is really black and what is really white. And I want you to calibrate everything to those colors I tell you. And so what happens is you can go into an image and you can pick a pixel and tell Photoshop, hey, this is what I say is the blackest black, and this is what I say is the whitest white. And Photoshop will go ahead and use math and calculate that and adjust everything in between to match it. So you're going to watch how this happens so quickly. It's almost like magic. So what we're going to do is... okay, so that's step 11 is explaining all of that's what I was talking about. Also, the other thing to point out is this adjustment layer is what we call a non-destructive layer or non-destructive tool. And what that means is that I'm going to make a change to this picture, but I'm not actually going to permanently change the pixels, meaning I could always go back and grab my original image and I don't permanently change it or damage it or edit it in a way that I can't return it. All right, so down to step 12. In the properties panel of the levels adjustment, select the black point. So we have these three little eyedroppers. What you're going to do is you're going to click on the black point, which is this one, sample black. We're going to click on it, and then we're going to tell Photoshop what I think is the darkest point in the image. Okay, we're going to tell Photoshop. So right down here, this area inside this like playground toy, this is kind of really the darkest, even darker than this graffiti up here. So what I want to do is I just want to hover my cursor over where I think is the darkest, and then I'm just going to click one time, boom. And just by clicking that one time, you can see the change that happened, right? Already it looks a lot better. And so if you didn't like that black point, if you wanted to pick a different one, you could. I can click again. It made it a little bit better, right? Maybe that's a better dark, maybe even over here. Oh, looks even better. So you can, I didn't click a lot. I didn't drag a lot. I'm just looking around and finding what I think is the best, darkest place of the image. All right, conversely, I can also set the white point. So that would be the brightest area. So I'm going to continue that calibration. I'm going to click on this white eyedropper right here. Just yeah, there it is. It says, I just want to show you this says white point. And then I'm going to pick these bricks right up above to the right of her head. This really seems like the whitest or brightest area. I'm going to click it one time, boom. And it just barely adjusted. You can see it barely adjusted the image, but it did make a change. Click again, and it got a little bit brighter. And that's okay. Changes don't have to be dramatic. They can be very subtle or very minor, and just a small change can make a big difference. All right, I'm going to do a Control S to save. Something else to point out I have in here. So if you ever want to undo the last step, you can always use Control Z or Command Z. However, what's really great about Photoshop is there is what's called a history panel. If you go to Window, History, I already have mine turned on because I leave it on. We get this history panel. I'm going to show it to you. And what happens in the history panel is every time I do something, it saves that step. So if I wanted to go backwards in time, let's say I didn't like anything I just did and I want to start over, I can come all the way back up and click to open, and it takes me all the way back. But I don't want to do that because we already did a lot of work and I don't want to do 15 minutes of work. So I could, I'm going to come back to where I was at. So what's great about the history panel is it'll let you go backwards in time. All right, so I'm back to where I was. Take notice, for those of you who are going to use the history panel, take note how I clicked on the name of the state. Do not click these boxes over here. It works in a different way. All right, I'm going to go ahead and adjust these a little bit more so I have more room. There we go. All right. All right, we did the white point. I jumped ahead and I did that one. All right, so now we can continue to adjust colors if we wanted to. We adjusted the lights and the darks, but now what you can do is you can do even more refinement. You can adjust specific colors of the spectrum. I could just adjust all the reds, all the blues, all the yellows if I wanted to do that. And so to do that, we're still on this adjustment layer. You can see it's selected in the layers panel. I still have my properties panel open. So what I can do is where it says RGB right here in the properties panel, I can change that. So when we were adjusting the steps in the previous step, we were affecting all the colors that were in my image. This time I just want to look at just the reds. So I can look at just the reds. And then what you're going to do, this one works a little bit different. I got to pull this down because we need a little bit more. What I want to do is this diagram here, this is called a histogram. We're not really going to talk much about it in this level of the class, but this is showing you how the color range, in this case the red color, how it flows inside the image. And so what you can do is you have these different sliders down here and you can start dragging them in different directions. And what's happening is this curve, this slope, once this slope starts to fall off and flatten out, if you drag this slider to right before it starts to flatten, see, if I drag it a lot, I'm getting rid of the red. If I drag it to the left, I'm adding a lot of red. Now we're back to where we were before. If I just drag it a little bit more, you know, it's looking, the flesh tones, the skin tones are looking more skin tone, okay? And you can go through and you can adjust the green layer. I could pull maybe the lights in. Okay, but now it's looking a little washed out to me. I don't really like that, so I might pull it back. I can go back to the blues. Let's see what happens when I pull this in. It's getting a little bit more, so that the ground is looking more blue. Now that's looking a little too washed out to me. I like that. That looks good. Now, this is one of many ways to edit an image or color correct an image. You're going to find many, many other tips and tricks. Now, this is what's really, I'm going to save my file. Hold on. Sometimes I tend to jump ahead. Now, this is really cool. The step E, this is what I want to show you. If you really, really want to see the change, what we can do, and I'm just going to move this up, is I have these layers. Right now I have 3 layers in my Photoshop file. I have one called Levels 1. I have a working layer and a background layer. This adjustment layer is affecting the layer below it. Okay, so the eyeball just lets you have the layer visibility turned on or off. So if I turn this adjustment layer off, watch what happens to the image. It goes back to the way it was. It looks horrible. I can turn it back on. Oh my gosh, it looks so much better. Bad. Good. Bad. Good. Okay, that is how you want to work in Photoshop. You're going to start using, going through your project, you make some changes, save your file, Control S, save, I got rid of my asterisk, and then you want to turn on and off the layers and kind of see what's happening, what the change looks like, and does it look good. I think that looks great, so we're going to go ahead and move on. Okay, I have a few other things. Let's see what's on 17. 17, press the tab key on the keyboard to hide all panels and look at your image. Oh, this is great. So here's another keyboard shortcut. If you just press the tab key in Photoshop, it hides all the panels. And that's another great way to just look at your image with nothing else. In fact, if I wanted to maximize Photoshop to my screen, wow, that's looking really, really good, right? I can just kind of look at that image with no other windows or anything distracting me. I'm going to go ahead and hit the restore down, press the tab key again, that turns them back on. All right. All right, now we're going to repair the image. I'm going to go ahead and make my panels. I'm actually going to kind of collapse these just to show this next step. So the next step I want you to do on step 18, it says fit the image to the window by either double clicking the hand tool or using the view menu. So I want to take this image and fit it to fill as much of the Photoshop area as I can. And a nice shortcut, which I use all the time, is to double click the hand tool. So I'm going to double click this, boom. Fills the whole page. So much easier to look at your work zoomed up close. In fact, I'm going to encourage you guys to zoom in over and over again, just so that you're not squinting or hunched over or cramping your hands on your mouse. We don't want any of that. We want you to be relaxed and having fun. Okay. All right, so we want to fix, okay, so I'm jumping down to step 9. Let's do a little repairing of the image. You're going to fix the wall just above and to the right of the girl's head. Hide any open panels and zoom in just above the hat. Now, if you don't want to close open panels, you don't have to. So let's just do this. So now I'm going to go back to where I was. There we go. Just want to be able to see what's happening. I'm going to double click my hand tool again. It's going to refit it. So I'm looking at this area. I want to fix this area above her head. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the zoom tool. Okay. And now I'm just going to click. I'm not going to click and drag. You can click and drag, but I like to just click, click, click. Okay. I can use my slider to my vertical and horizontal scroll bars to really kind of just center that in the area that I work on. So I want to kind of fix this. And so what we're going to do is we are going to select the working layer. So that means click on this layer. So notice how this layer is now in gray. That levels layer is now in gray. The background layer is now selected. The working layer is now selected. So you have to make sure that you click on whatever layer you want to work on. We're going to go ahead and work on this layer, and we're going to make some changes to it. All right, so we're going to use the clone stamp tool. Select the clone stamp tool. So that is this guy right here. If you don't see it, you can click and hold. It's under pattern stamp and clone stamp are grouped together. So we're going to click on the clone tool and you will see that the options bar changes, right? I have different options for this tool. Okay. So the clone stamp tool uses pixels from one area of the image to replace pixels in another part of the image. This is a great tool for removing unwanted portions of an image as well as replacing missing areas. This is the tool that you can use to give yourself 3 eyes on your face, or you can give yourself a second head. You can also use it to repair pieces of an image. I'm actually going to click on my zoom tool. And do you see how I'm changing the tool back to zoom? See how there's a plus there? I'm going to hold the Alt key down on my keyboard. When I hold the Alt, it changes it to zooming out instead of zooming in. And I'm just going to click once and zoom out just a little bit. I just wanted a little bit more of the area. Okay. So before we start using I'm going to go back. I have to click the clone stamp tool again. So make sure you click the clone stamp tool. Okay. So before we even use the tool, first of all, you can see my tool looks like a big circle. And the way the clone stamp tool works is it is considered a brush. And what you're looking at is the tip of the brush. So if you were holding a paintbrush and you were looking directly at the bristles, that's kind of what this circle is representing. And so what happens within this circle is important because those are the pixels that we're going to be using to replace other areas of the image. So we're going to make the following changes on the options bar. I'm going to change the brush size. That's this number right here, to 21. Clearly I must have been working on this assignment before. At 21, you can just type a 21 in there. I want the hardness to 0. You can also drag the slider down. And then I can click out here, okay? And then you want to make sure that aligned has a check mark there. Okay, make sure there's a check mark there. All right, so now what's going to happen is we're going to place your cursor, so on step 22, place your cursor to the right of the missing brick area where there are good bricks, and press and hold the Alt or Option key if you're on a Mac, and then click to sample a good part of an image. Okay, so I'm gonna do step 22 and step 23 together. So what's going to happen is I want to replace this piece with these bricks. These bricks look good and clean and look like good bricks. So I'm going to paint them. I'm going to take the bricks here and basically put them into a paintbrush and use them to paint over this area. So I'm going to come out here where my cursor is. I'm going to hold the Alt key down. When I press the Alt key, the cursor changes to a crosshairs. This is saying, okay, click. So I'm going to click. I've clicked. I let go of the Alt key and it loads this brick into that brush, basically. So now what I can do is I can click, hold, and drag, click, hold, and drag, click, hold, and drag, click, hold, and drag, click, hold, and drag. Okay, and I can click, 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 click. Okay, and I can continue to replace the bricks. Now, what happens is, watch what happens. I'm going to just start, if I wanted to paint over her head, you can see I'm painting over her head, right? This is how I could get her out. But oh no, now she's appearing here. Wherever the crosshairs are, those are the pixels that are being put into the circle. So really, wherever you click, it's the distance between the end of your brush and the original source point. Okay, so I just did a lot of messing up. So this is where the beauty of the history panel comes in. Look at that. I was just playing with that. I don't like any of those. So I'm going to go back to layer visibility. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning and do that one again. I have the clone stamp tool. Make sure I'm on the working layer. Okay. I already have all my settings. I don't have to change those. So this time I'm going to press the Alt key. I'm going to click up here. So it's a little bit farther away. Now I'm going to click, hold, and drag, click, hold, and drag, click, hold, and drag, click, hold, and drag. Maybe I want to source a different point. So now I'm going to go Alt click and I'm going to paint over here. Paint, paint. Okay, I know I'm doing a little bit more than what's in my instructions, but that's okay. That is how, look at that, as if it were never there. Alt click, that picks up my new source point. Maybe do an Alt click farther out. Alt click here, click, click and drag. Okay, now, obviously my brush looks a little too big, so if I really wanted to get around her face, I would change the size of my brush, make it smaller. I'd zoom in. That is how you start repairing images. All right, so let me see, continue using, okay, so step 24 says continue using this method to remove all of the graffiti, all of that. Okay, so here's what's really cool. So watch this. So I'm going to double click my hand tool. All right, so I've zoomed out. So I've already started to fix the picture, okay? What I'm looking for you guys to do is just replace everything above the yellow, okay? That's the minimum. I have had students do the entire wall. They make the entire wall become brick and they remove all the graffiti. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But you're only at a minimum. Everything above the yellow, I want you to get rid of. So here's another trick, our little tip I want to show. So I've zoomed, we were working on the, whoops, that was the trick I wanted to show. I've zoomed in. Now it's really, one of the things a lot of students want to know, and it is important, is I want to know all the keyboard shortcuts. So you're going to see Photoshop requires the use of, the keyboard and the mouse at the same time. So sometimes, some of the keys on the keyboard, when you press them, turn on other tools. So right now you can see I have the zoom tool, right? If I wanted to move around my picture at this level, I can come over here to that hand tool, it's called pan, and I can click, hold, and drag. I can click, hold, and drag, and I can move around, right? Okay, that's really nice. And then I could go to my clone stamp tool and I could start working again. Now, if I wanted to work and pan, but I don't want to have to click anything, what I could do is, right now I have the clone tool. If I hold the space bar down, you can see the space bar activates the pan tool. I let go of the space bar and my clone tool is still there. In fact, when I press the space bar, nothing happens over here. I'm pressing the space bar, it turns the hand tool, and now with my mouse, I can click and move around, let go, and now I still have the clone tool that I'm using. Okay. I use that all the time. That is one of my standard shortcuts, activating that hand tool to pan around the image. So if I wanted to just demo this again, I have my clone stamp. I have all the same settings dialed in. If you want to pick different ones, you can. If I wanted to make the brush bigger, some people think, oh, I'll make it bigger, and that's going to make it faster for me. Sometimes fast is not always the answer in Photoshop. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and Alt-click up here, and now I'm just going to paint, right? Alt-click to pick a new source point, right? Alt-click to pick new source points. Alt-click, new source point. Okay, so that's kind of, oh, and now, once I start pulling in other pieces of the graphic, obviously I need to pick a new source point. Now, so I can come out here, Alt-click, source point. Okay, so I pick that. Now, if I want to go back to the girl's head, so I held the space bar down, I'm panning over, okay? If I want to activate the zoom tool, that's, is it Z? Should know. Yes, Z, thank you. I was going to say V, but that is move. So I can zoom in, okay? And now I'm going to use the hand tool to move around. So let's say I want to get around her head. Obviously, my brush is too big. I could come up here to the toolbar, or excuse me, the options bar, and manually change the size, or come back out here. The square brackets on your keyboard, left square makes it small, right square makes it big. So you can change the size of your brush right here on the screen. That looks like a much better size. And now I can Alt-click and work on painting this in. Okay, Alt-click, and I can get really close. Alt-click to her face. Okay, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just looking for practice. Alt-click. But I want to be careful that I don't remove her face. Now, this image is pixelated because I'm not having you guys work on a high-res image. I do that for file size and ease of use. Again, these are practice files. If you were being paid money to do this, you would have a very high resolution image so that you have more pixels to work with and really refine those edges. All right, I'm going to double click the hand tool so you can see, and you should always check the progress of your work. So now if I turn off the eyeball to the working layer, on, off, on, off, on, off. So you want to make sure that you guys are checking that so that you can see your progress, letting you see how much further you have to go. Okay, so I went through that. 24 talks about the hand tool, save our files. I'm going to give you a Control S. Okay, so for this assignment, you don't have to turn in the PSD. Just a JPEG is all I need for this one. Almost all the other files are PSD files, but sometimes I have students do the JPEG just to have that practice. So again, to save a copy, make a copy as a JPEG, you want to go File, Save As, and choose JPEG from the drop-down list, and you can leave, whoops, I picked the wrong one, JPEG, and you can use it with the same name, Save. And you can default the options. Okay, and so that is the assignment in a nutshell. This is good. I got it in under an hour, and we're at the 33-minute mark. Hopefully you'll pick up a few extra tips and tricks. This will help you complete the assignment. And of course, you know that if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.